Well, today I'm going to start on cutting the beams for this house, and I've got a lot of them. I've got 16 of them for both of the rooms, and then there's 10 in the main room, and I've got the big one I've got to mill somewhere else, and the two 12-foot ones I've got to mill somewhere else. But right now I'm going to work on setting this up to do, I've already got a log on here, to do some 4-foot or 4-inch beams, and I don't remember how long they have to be, but it's something like 66 inches or something like that. So I'll set you up on time lapse and I'm gonna cut that. The mill I'm using is a Hudson Sawyer. I'm probably gonna do a review on this pretty soon too. It's a pretty cool mill. And for the money, I think it's about the best thing you can get because a lot of those other ones are better. And I've used the HM 126 and it's far superior to this mill, but it's also like $10,000 by the time you put it on a trailer and all that. But anyway, be looking for that video in the near future. Just wanted to kind of give you some details about how I'm setting this up. This is the Hudson Sawyer. Again, great mill in my opinion. The suckiest part about it is these log dogs. They don't work great. But for the money, this is the most well-built machine. You can call this little company and somebody will answer the phone and help you solve your problems. They'll get your parts, the whole thing. I mean, it's feels like it's from the 50s, like things probably used to be before I was alive. But I can't complain about it. It's been great. But I'm setting up these logs probably a little different than I would cut some other stuff. I'm not super concerned about how great they are because I'm going to rough them up with a grinder and make them look sort of hand hewn and whatever. Anyway, I'm thinking, but I'll kind of just show you how I'm setting these up. You're supposed to level out the pith. What is the pith? If you're not a log person, a sawyer, the pith is that little split. So you're supposed to level the center of this on this side and then the other side, and you use shims and stuff. I don't super care because these aren't really even structural. You'll see the pith is all over the place. That one's kind of toward the middle. That one's not. But if you want something to be really solid, you want the pith to be either cut out of it to where you use one side or the other, or it needs to be a pretty big piece of timber and it's in the middle. So like this one has a double. So it's not really a structurally number one piece of lumber anyway, I would say. But these logs aren't great. They're all pretty wiry. That's fine. I want this to be rustic, and so it works for me. And if I was cutting out lumber for cabinets, I would try to pick stuff that didn't have like knots in it and whatnot, so that I have clear lumber, unless I'm just trying to make like character grade looking stuff. But these are all really small logs. That one on top I'll probably put on next because it's a little wonky anyway, and just kind of show you how I'm going to set it up. This is a pretty small log, and I don't really need this, but this thing right here is called a cant hook, and it's super helpful at moving big logs. You can have a 2,000-pound log and roll it yourself. Now moving it this way, end to end, is pretty tough. What I've been doing, and I'm going to move this and probably start another channel about like homesteading soon, build a little shed for it. But I tend to take and back a trailer up and then use my gator or tie off a tow strap somewhere and just move forward and let the log fall off because they're easy to roll. They're just hard to move lengthwise. And I got these a little too far forward, so I'm having to fight it a bit. But I'm going to take and roll this log up, and it's kind of tough because it's got some random stuff. But this tool makes all the difference. Once I get the log on it, I kind of look at it and think, which way do I want to cut this? Because this one has this little nubby thing there. It makes it a little bit hard. If it's any wider, you might have to get a chainsaw and lob it off because this only cuts 22 inches wide. But if it's 22 inches at that end and you got a jog in it, you're going to have problems. So You usually look at it, like I said, you're supposed to level the pith. I don't really care because these posts are just decorative. And so I use these log holders. I'll flip them up usually so I can push the log that way or roll it that way. I normally take the center one. And the way I've got these set up, oh man, they're a little bit farther back than they're supposed to be because most of the logs I mill are pretty short because I'm using it for cabinet stock. The only gripe I have with this mill is the log dogs. They don't work very good. You have to use a hammer, I think. All right, so I'll set up there and make my first cut and just kind of note if there's a bow in the middle or whatever. I end up making probably 3 cuts before I get to where I'm like, fine. And then you'll see me, I'll just put on time lapse, but I'll flip it to get a square or, half the square. And once you got 2 sides, you don't have to use these kind of in the same way. There's little knobs on the track system that hold the log, hold the edge. You get a really small cant, if you square it off, it's called a cant. It doesn't hold very well, but that's kind of the process. And what I'll do, this is such a small log, I can't get much else out of it, but I've got other lumber and I try to get like 1-inch thick boards because you can mill those down to 3/4 later. 1 inch is pretty standard size for sawmill cut. So I'll fire it up and cut this log. You'll see it. Well, I messed up and didn't get the footage from what I just did, but let me give you the recap. So I cut 2 sides of it, tried to square it up, and I'm about to cut the last side. There's a little bit of wane on this. Wane is just the bark that's showing through, but it's going to be fine. I don't mind. I'm going to end up taking a draw knife or grinder or whatever and kind of roughing these up anyway, just to make them look somewhat hand-hewn. So I want them to be pretty rustic. And the worst side I can point up at the ceiling if I have to and make that happen because we have 1/2-inch drywall to kind of cover stuff up. But what I've been doing, you kind of see the remainder of it, is if I can get some 1-inch boards out of a wheel, this one's probably it was too small to do it, but you see the residue of my red pencil mark. I just measure up. You can use the scale on the actual mill, but this seems to be more accurate to me. So that's what I tend to do. I'll put a tape measure on it. I'll make a mark, line my blade up with it, and then go from there. So I'm going to flip this over and just literally I'm going to measure 4 inches over, make my mark, and cut the rest of this off, and it will be finished and ready to go in the pile. I didn't get quite as much as I hoped I would, but I'm kind of out of time for today. But just wanted to show you kind of the process for milling up lumber. If you didn't have a sawmill like this and you didn't have a friend with one, it's probably better to have a friend with one because you can just take it to his house and not have to pay for it and store it. But if you didn't, you could use one of those chainsaw mills. They're pretty easy to make, even DIY, but for rough sawing stuff like this, and that's pretty gnarly. I went a little faster than probably should have, and so some of it's kind of wavy. I might honestly go back and give it one more pass and bring them down to like 3.5 instead of 4, a true 4. And some of them are a little bigger than that anyway, but I wanted to just make some progress. In the process, I got a bunch of just random boards that are, one straight edge. So pretty happy with the outcome. I got some slabs and stuff over there too, but just wanted to show you what I've accomplished today, which is really just make a big pile of stuff I have to move.